Hey everyone, welcome back to Crime Family. I'm your co-host AJ, and I'm here with my sister and co-host Katie. And it's just going to be the two of us again today. Steph wasn't able to join us today, but we have a very interesting case to talk about. One that I'm very excited to talk about with Katie because I originally heard of this case back in, I think it was the summer of last year. So, well over 6 months ago now. And it's one of those cases, I don't know, every so often you come across a case that just perplexes you. It just stays with you. Like, this is a case that I watched an episode of and was thinking about it for a long time after and like rewatched it because it was so interesting and just weird to me. So, um, I knew when we started planning this new season that I wanted to talk about it for the show, and that is the mysterious death of Amanda Antoni. And we're going to discuss this case. It's a woman from Alberta, Canada, who died under very suspicious circumstances in October of 2015. And this case came to my attention, like I said, when it was actually on Netflix's Unsolved Mysteries, and it's from Volume 4, Episode 2, called Body in the Basement. So if you're interested in watching the Unsolved Mysteries episode about this case, I highly recommend it. So it's called Body in the Basement. Very well done. And I think I'm saying Amanda Antoni. I think that's right. It could be Antoni, but I think it's Antoni.
I think it's Antoni, isn't it?
Antoni. Okay. Yeah, I was like, we'll say Antoni. That's more natural to me, but for some reason I had it in my mind that it was Antoni. So I'll just say Antoni.
Yeah, I think they say Antoni in the documentary, if I'm remembering correct.
Okay. So, okay. We'll watch it after this and realize it was the opposite, but that's okay. It'll be fine. So first I want to just talk a little bit, just briefly, about who Amanda was and kind of give you a lead up to this case. So Amanda Antoni was raised in a foster family. So she had two foster brothers who were both older than her, and the family officially adopted her when she was just 14 months old. So she was a part of this family from the time she was 14 months old on. So Amanda was always a very positive force. She loved to joke around and she loved animals, especially cats and dogs. So that was how her family described her, just this lovable, very likable, always positive person. At the time of her death, Amanda was self-employed. She was the owner of a small house cleaning business. And in Unsolved Mysteries, they interview her mother and as well as her two brothers, and they say that she kind of supported her husband Lee because Lee would kind of go from job to job and didn't really have anything consistently. So I think that was maybe a point of contention, that she was sort of, being the sole earner in the household. And her brothers did say that her and Lee would fight often or just argue a lot. I don't know if it was just about that specifically, or just in general. But so yeah, and her brothers say that, they liked Lee, but they weren't like overly close with him or didn't get along with him super, super well, but they didn't like hate him by any means. So this case really begins on Monday, October 26th, 2015. Like I said, in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. So Amanda's husband frantically calls 911, reporting that he found Amanda dead in the basement of their home after returning from a weekend away. Lee frantically says in the 911 call, when asked if she's alive and breathing, that no, she is cold. Police arrived immediately on the scene and discovered that Amanda had been dead for quite a bit of time. So as police make their way down the basement stairs, one officer noticed a piggy bank on a ledge leading down to the stairs, down to the basement, that was partially broken. So there was a large amount of blood that covered the basement floor and surrounded Amanda's body, who was laid out in a pool of blood. So she had a significant head injury. She was struck by something quite significantly that left a large gash on the right side of her face and skull, kind of between where her eyes meet her hairline. So like in between her eyes and her hairline. So some officers say in Unsolved Mysteries that this was the bloodiest scene they had ever seen. And they show pictures of the crime scene in Unsolved Mysteries. And yeah, it does look very, very bloody and quite intense. So police early on suspected that the broken ceramic piggy bank that was on the ledge by the staircase was the blunt instrument that was used to kill Amanda. And there was also several broken ceramic pieces on the staircase. Amanda even had pieces of ceramic embedded into her forehead. So that was initially what the investigators thought, that, it was quite clear that this piggy bank was somehow involved with broken pieces and even some of it in Amanda's forehead. Additionally, Amanda's body was partially unclothed with her pants pulled down past her waist, which led investigators to believe there may have been a sexual assault before or during her murder. There So, because the piggy bank was sort of a point of interest at the very beginning, there was some forensic testing that was done to test it for fingerprints, but there were no fingerprints that were found on the ceramic piggy bank, and the dust at the top of it had settled, which meant that it hadn't been disturbed or picked up in a long time. So, like, the dust was still very much intact; it hadn't been touched for a while. So, in the rest of the house, aside from the basement, there were no signs of forced entry anywhere in the house. So there wasn't really any sign of a disturbance, really, other than a couple of small things. If there was an offender, police surmised that they would have had to get into the home with a key or through an unlocked back door, because there was no breaking and entering. And so it was either that, like the person had a key, the door was unlocked, or Amanda knew this person and had let them into the home willingly. Those are really the only options there. In the dining room of the home was Amanda's broken phone with the screen cracked, and there was also a knocked over chair. So these items were near the dining room table, and this was on the opposite end of the room from the staircase that led down to the basement. So we'll put a picture here in the video version of this. You'll see a picture pop up here with kind of the layout of the main floor. So you'll see there's the dining room table with the chair turned over, and then the phone broken on the other side of that. And then across the room is the staircase leading down to the basement. So that was obviously odd and weird. And those are really the only signs of any type of things that were like out of place. Like there was nothing else that was broken other than this piggy bank and her phone, and like no other things had been rummaged through. So there was also no evidence that there was a robbery that had taken place or anything like that. So just a very odd scene initially. And so police begin their investigation. And of course, they take fingerprints around the home and they investigate the condition of the body. And police immediately interview Amanda's brothers. And they say, like I said, that she would often fight with her husband Lee. And while they liked him, they didn't really get along overly well with him. And they did encourage the police to interview him. So obviously, they were clearly maybe not fully suspicious of him, but they just wanted to make sure that the police were going to interview him. And obviously, the police did interview Lee immediately. And obviously, because in a case like this, if there's a person that's found dead, one of the first people that gets looked at is the spouse. The husband is usually the first person that would kind of be looked at in an
Yeah.
investigation like this. So,
And I
okay.
think, like, another thing that made them super suspicious was they had said even in this documentary that I think they had been married for, like, 6 years, and they had never really spent even one night apart ever, and then so he happens to go away for the first time ever without her, and somehow this the only time that he was ever away overnight, something happens to Amanda. So it's just like, what are the odds of that happening? It just seems like suspicious. So they're thinking like he planned something for the one and only time he was ever away from her. So it brought up some suspicion for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, that like in and of itself is weird right from the beginning. And so when they do interview Lee, pretty much immediately, he gives them his version of events. So I'm going to kind of walk you through what his version of events is, and then we'll go from there. So the body was found on Monday, October 26th, and Lee says that he left for the weekend on the previous Friday. So it'd be Friday, October 23rd. He says that he left for a weekend away, going out of province. He told investigators that the original plan was for Amanda and him to travel to Saskatchewan, which is the next province, over together. But at the last minute, Amanda chose to stay home because she was suffering from a migraine. So Lee says he left around 11 a.m. on the Friday morning to go to Saskatchewan to visit his mother and to help settle an estate for his father who had passed away about a year earlier. So later that day, he says that he called Amanda after he arrived at his mother's in Saskatchewan, and she said that she still had her migraine. So there is a text history from Lee's phone that shows a long chat between him and Amanda all of that day and then the next day, which would be Saturday. And it consisted of just regular conversation. So nothing really alarming out of this, just regular, what are you up to? How was your day? I miss you, those types of things. So, and yeah, Katie, as you said, although Lee and Amanda rarely spend any time or a night apart, he was away for the whole weekend, which was something that initially raised suspicions for the police. And they interview some of the detectives in this case in the Unsolved Mysteries episode. And the police in that say that the statistical probability of Amanda being killed in the one weekend that Lee is away when they've been together for so long and never really spent any time apart is just very unlikely and in is in and of itself a red flag. So that was something that kind of made the investigators think a little bit. So Lee says then that he last spoke with Amanda around 7 p.m. on Saturday night over the phone. So, like I said, they had a chat history from the Friday and then into the Saturday all day. And then they actually have a phone call at 7 p.m. on Saturday night. And during that call, he says that Amanda had mentioned that her migraines were going away and that she was starting to feel a little bit better. But he says that he could hear their dog, Ruby, barking on the other end of the phone, and Amanda was telling the dog to be quiet. And then Lee says he heard the dog yelp, followed by the sound of Amanda walking, and then there was like a crunching sound, and finally the call cut out. So Lee says that he tried calling back on his phone and then he wasn't able to reach her. So he tried his mother's landline, but the calls were going straight to voicemail. So he sent several texts asking if she was okay or if her phone had died, but he received no response. So he says that he didn't really think anything right away. He thought maybe she was just her phone had died. Maybe she had gone to charge it. Maybe she was busy. So he didn't really fear the worst. He just thought, okay, I'll go to bed and I'll try the next morning to reach her. Because he just assumed that the phone had died. So Lee says that he continued trying to reach Amanda throughout the day on Sunday, but he wasn't super concerned because he thought that maybe she was just busy or she was out with her family. He says that she was very close with her family. So it's not weird that she would go out all day and be with them. But he said he was also busy because he was helping his mother do things with their dad's estate. So they kind of went through the day he went through the day without any contact with Amanda, but wasn't worried really at this point. And then on Sunday night, Lee decided that he would wake up early on Monday and head home right away. So when police discovered Amanda's body, it was found in rigor mortis, which led investigators to initially believe that she had died sometime on Sunday. Although the official autopsy report by the medical examiner determined Saturday evening as the time of death. So this is one discrepancy because in Unsolved Mysteries, I know that the officer that they're interviewing says that they had determined maybe initially that it was Sunday, that she had died on Sunday, because they found her on Monday. But the medical examiner report does state that it was Saturday between 7 and 7:30 p.m. was her time of death. So I don't know, but in this Netflix episode of Unsolved Mysteries, the police officer says they believed it was Sunday. So if that is the case, then it was the Sunday night around the same time that Lee's making plans to go home. The next morning is when Amanda officially dies. So that brings us to Monday, October 26th. So on this date in Calgary, so Lee leaves Saskatchewan. He leaves his mother's home early around 8 a.m. or 8:30 a.m. and arrives back home in Calgary at around 3:45 p.m. And when he arrived at home, the front door was locked. He says that their dog greeted him when he got into the house and he let the dog out to go to the bathroom, but Amanda was nowhere to be found. So Lee mentioned that he let the dog out the back door to go to the bathroom when he got home, but couldn't remember if he had to unlock the door first or if it was already locked. And he says in interviews that that's like the one thing for him that he just kept racking his brain about. Like even now, like he can't for the life of him remember, because probably because it's just such a normal action, you don't think to take note of it. But he can't remember if that door was locked or unlocked, because that would be telling. If we knew the door was unlocked, then that means that could be a point of entry for this person. But if the door was locked, then we know that the person couldn't have a couldn't have a gone into that door unless they had a key. So that would just be an important detail to know, but he just doesn't know. So after searching the upstairs bedroom and the bathroom with no success, Lee goes and checks the basement. And it was there at the bottom of the stairs that he found Amanda dead, surrounded by a pool of blood. So initially, like I said, the fact that Lee was away in Saskatchewan for the weekend when Amanda died was suspicious. However, police, because they started to look into him, and he kind of took them along his whole route and told them the route that he took to his mother's place. And the police were able to kind of travel along that route, and they found surveillance footage all along the way, and videos from the gas stations that confirmed that Lee was indeed where he said he was supposed to be. So they see him on the surveillance videos in these gas stations all the way from Calgary all the way to his mother's place in Saskatchewan. So that corroborates that he was out of town at the time when this is said to have happened. So that rules him out as a direct perpetrator. However, they do mention in Unsolved Mysteries, like the detective says, just because he was physically away, that doesn't mean that he wasn't necessarily involved some other way. So he could have hired someone to kill Amanda, and then have them do it while he's out of town, so he has an alibi and all of that stuff. And it was briefly considered that this could be a possible theory. However, there's no evidence at all to support this theory. So, of course, they did a thorough check of his phone because they were able to see that chat history between him and Amanda during the Saturday, and they never found any call history or anything that suggested he called someone or had any involvement in like hiring someone or anything like that.
Yeah,
So, I
and there
mean,
also was, like, really no they couldn't really find a motivation or, like, a motive for why he would want to have her killed because it wasn't like she had a life insurance policy, like, there was no evidence that he, like, had any monetary gain from her dying, so him hiring someone to kill her just really didn't make sense, like, there really was no reason why he would want that, so that's, like, another reason why I think they ruled that out pretty quickly. And also, he didn't have any money, so it was like, who did he hire? Like, somebody for free that was just gonna come and, like, kill his wife for free because he didn't work, so, yeah, there was, like, just no evidence that he had paid anybody to do anything, so
yeah. Yeah, that's very true. The money route I wasn't thinking, because I was just gonna say to play devil's advocate, um, because they say like there's no evidence to suggest like nothing in his phone that he ever called anyone, or there's no like unknown numbers in his phone, or no like search history or anything like that. But I was also saying like if he knew someone, he could make sure that he only talks to them in person so that there is no trail. Like in my mind, if like the theory is possible that he hired someone, let's just say, and then he's going along his route in the surveillance footage to like make him have an alibi, that's someone who's smart. So he would also be smart enough to also only talk to this person in person. He's not going to leave a trail in his phone, right? Because it's obviously someone who would have thought ahead that he would have to have an alibi, things like that. But that's just playing devil's advocate because obviously I don't think that that's a credible theory. I don't think he was involved in any way. But in the documentary, they're like, there's no evidence to suggest that. There's no history in his phone or anything like that. But I'm like, that doesn't necessarily mean he's not involved
yeah,
because you can have just only conversations in person.
that's true, but another thing that was brought up, I'm not sure if it was the documentary or something else I'd listened to, but it was like if he had hired someone to kill her, it was obviously, like, a very skilled person because they had left 0 trace that anyone had ever been there, and someone like that would probably cost a lot of money, you would think, like, someone that knew what they were doing could get in and out without leaving any trace of themselves, and so him not having any money, that doesn't make sense either, so it's just, like, a weird theory.
Yeah. So definitely not really one that I think is credible at all. But yeah, the police just mentioned that that was something that they did think, because they checked the surveillance footage and like, okay, he has an alibi, but that doesn't mean he's not involved some other way. But then they say there's no evidence to suggest that. So they can't really focus on that theory because there's nothing to corroborate that.
Yeah, also
So
something else that makes me think that he wasn't involved was because he said he could not remember if that door was unlocked or locked, and if he, like, was involved, but he wanted to blame somebody else, he would for sure be like, "Oh, yeah, that door was unlocked, it was, like, slightly ajar, like, somebody could have come right in." For him to be like, "Oh, I can't remember, like, it could have been locked," makes me think that he really did not have any idea. Because if he wanted to blame someone else, it'd be so easy for him to be like, "That door was unlocked when I came home."
yeah, that's true. That's true. So and like I believe that everything he said in the documentary, like they interview him in the documentary, and I think well, I keep calling it a documentary, but it's like unsolved mysteries. But um yeah, I just think he's very credible. I believed everything that he said, so I don't really have any reason to think that he was involved, and there's no evidence to suggest that. But
Yeah, I feel the same. I
I
feel
did,
like he wasn't involved at all.
yeah, like I did go on like the down the Reddit rabbit hole on this case, and there are people on Reddit who say like his crying seemed forced in unsolved mysteries, and like they don't believe him, like whatever. There's always going to be people that say that. So I yeah, I just know there are people out there that are probably suspicious of him, but like we they need to get over it. Like there's
Yeah,
no evidence to
there's really
support
no
that.
reason to think, yeah, that he like, there's nothing that anyone has found to make him look like he had anything to do with it. Just a
Yeah.
coincidence that he happened to not be there one time and then something happened.
Yeah, which is also I'll get into it when we go into like the possible theories of the reasoning for maybe that, how that happened and the coincidence of that. So I'm just going to go over the autopsy and the forensic findings because the forensics in this is very very interesting. So the autopsy that was conducted revealed the following details. So Amanda's cause of death was determined to be blunt force trauma resulting in massive blood loss, primarily due to the head injury. So the she didn't have any broken bones except for her right orbital bone, which to be honest, I had to look up what orbital bone meant because I didn't know what that was. So it's like the bone around like your eye socket. So like, and that would make sense if because that's where her huge gash was. So it's obviously that she was hit there, and so that was the bone on her right side that was broken. And even though that was the only broken bone she did have lots of bruises. She had bruises on her face, knees, and hips. So that was interesting. It looked like she had been beaten by somebody with something. And the autopsy also revealed that cannabis was found in Amanda's system, although they couldn't determine the levels of it. So they couldn't say definitively how much she had or anything like that. But Lee did confirm or say to investigators that Amanda might have been using cannabis as like a treatment for her migraines. So if she had a really bad migraine, she could have just smoked weed to make herself feel a little bit better. So that could have been the explanation there. And there was also, like I said a little bit before, there were no fingerprints that were found on any items at the scene. So they would have done a thorough search of fingerprints on the property, especially in the basement, but also around the house. And they never found any fingerprints that were of unknown origin. And the only DNA present belonged to Amanda in the basement. So there were some dark brown colored drip stains of blood that looked like it could have been, caused from blood dripping from an attacker. Like if they were injured in the attack and they were cut, then they would have like a cut maybe on their finger or something that would be dripping. So when they saw that drip pattern, they kind of thought, oh, that might be evidence that there was this intruder or this perpetrator, because if they're bleeding, they would have that sort of pattern. But they did find that these DNA samples from that drip pattern also only contained Amanda's DNA. So it was Amanda's blood that was dripping. There was no forensic evidence that found that indicated a sexual assault, and no one else was detected in the basement at any time aside from Amanda. So they never found DNA from anyone else. Like, there was no unidentified DNA profiles found on her body or in the basement or on the stairs or on anything involved in this case. There were 12 foot impressions in Amanda's pool of blood, and two of the foot impressions were facing up the stairs. So toes touching the bottom step. So it's as if someone was standing at the bottom of the stairs and staring up up the stairway or the staircase. So it was just a creepy image in and of itself, like,
It's so
creeps me
eerie
out
to
when I think about
picture.
it.
Yeah.
So creepy.
Ugh.
So that was odd. So, like, kind of doing investigation and the crime scene, the investigators were probably thinking like, okay, this could be evidence that a person was standing at the bottom of these stairs, and there's foot impressions in the blood. There was also two slippers that were presumed to be Amanda's that were also found at the bottom of the stairs, though there were only barefoot impressions throughout the scene. So whoever foot impressions these were, it was from a bare. It wasn't like a shoe impression. It was like a foot, like a barefoot. Um, so that's, you know,
Yeah.
a
And
killer's not really going to take their shoes off and do that.
yeah.
I mean,
Well, I have seen, like, other cases where, like, the killer thought that they could outsmart the police by going barefoot instead of with their shoes, but anyway, um, this yeah, and, like, the blood spatter analysis in the, like, documentary said she was so shocked when they found out that there was actually not somebody else's, like, DNA or, like, finger or foot impressions because she said there were so many, like, patterns that just made it look so obvious that someone else had been there. Because yeah, like you said, there was, like, the foot impressions, there was, like, spatter on the wall that was, like, dripping down, there was the blood that was dripping, there was, like, smears all over the floor, and she's like, "There's just so much going on that it had to be more than, like, one person down there." And then when I found out that there really wasn't any other evidence, it was only Amanda, it was, like, crazy to her. So that's just like you get a picture of, like, how crazy it was down there in the basement. Ugh.
yeah. And I think if you just look at it objectively, you think there's this many foot impressions. There has to be someone, these two that are at the bottom of the stairs, like from someone standing at the bottom, staring up the stairs. Like you'd think that would be, like, it's just crazy. Yeah. To think that there would not be any other DNA at all. So either there was no person in the basement or someone is just very good at covering or cleaning up the scene. Um, so,
But then yeah, but then
um,
when you realize it's all her foot impressions, like, you realize she was alive down there, like, walking around, which is, like, super sad, and, like, was she just and the group have talked about this, like, some of the theories that are gonna come out of this, was she just too disoriented to, like, go back up those stairs? Or was she scared? Was she standing there, like, that's why she didn't even try to go up the stairs? Like, why was she walking around and standing up, but never went up the stairs? So that's, like, one of the things that's just, like, baffles me. And
yeah.
everybody, I think, that comes across this case, they're just like, "Why?" And, like, even there's not even, like, bloody handprints as if she'd, like, tried to, like, crawl up the stairs at all, like, she never even touched the stairs, which is, like, weird, like, she never even tried to, like, sneak up there if she was scared, like, it's just, like, never even tried, so it's super weird.
Yeah, it's just, and as we'll get, yeah, into it and like our discussion at the end, like this, that's one of the things that is baffling in this case, that there was no attempt at all to get up the stairs. So she, yeah, it's just great. I don't want to like say too much because I'm gonna ruin what I'm gonna tell you later or as we get through. But yeah, it's just, there's a lot in this case that's just super weird, and I can't really wrap my mind around certain things. So so initially there were swipe marks in the pool of blood. So the bloodstain analysis person that they interview in Unsolved Mystery, she said that initially it looked like there was like these swipe marks that could be an attempt to wipe away footwear impression. So if it was someone who did leave like a boot print or a shoe print, then, you know, if they're trying to kick it around so that there's no impression there, that's what they thought the swiping motion in the blood could be. However, these swipe marks could be explained another way. So I actually did a little bit of a deeper dive. I watched the Unsolved Mysteries, but there was also I think it's like a Netflix associated website that had more details about the case and had like extra crime scene photos and also had extra clips that I think there were like deleted scenes from the episode. So I did watch those, and in in one of the clips there, the bloodstain analysis expert, she says that she did do some research into concussions and spoke with several experts who said that sometimes when people have a severe concussion, like if they hit their head, they will do things. If it's severe enough, they will do things like rituals to try to soothe themselves. So she says that one theory is that the swoosh marks in the pools of blood could be from Amanda, like moving her fingers or arms back and forth as like a coping or soothing mechanism that maybe she's not even aware that she's doing, but it's like a thing that can happen in severe concussion. So she said that is possible that these swipe marks are from Amanda making these motions with her arms or her fingers going back and forth. And she also explains that blood splatters from the wall, because Katie, you said there was like splatters, like looks like there's stuff dripping down the wall. She said that these are consistent with, like, if Amanda, she said that when they found Amanda's body, her hair was so saturated with blood. So they said the splatters could be from Amanda, like shaking her head back to try to get the hair out of her eyes or the blood out of her eyes. So she's like moving her head around back and forth, that would leave those blood stain in that pattern on the wall. Um, so that interesting. And Katie, you did say that there were no um, like handprints or anything on the stairs. However, there this extra footage that I saw said there were blood patterns that were consistent with like a palm print or a handprint that was on the wall at the bottom of the stairs. So on that section of wall right at the bottom of the stairs. And she says that it's as if Amanda was like touching the wall and using the wall as an attempt to like get herself up off the floor. Then this handprint could be left there when she's trying to do that. And she does say that the patterns that they found in these stains were consistent with the fabric pattern on the cuff of Amanda's sweater. So it could have been like her sweater was, it was her hand and it was her sweater that was there with this handprint. And there were there was also, she explains that there were large areas with darker blood, so meaning there was more amounts of blood in that area, which made it much darker than other areas. And she says she considers this to be where Amanda was laying down as she was bleeding out. And this is where she lost the most amount of blood, were in those areas of the floor that had the darker color, because that's where, if you're losing more blood, it's going to put more and more and make it darker in color. And there was also a large pool of blood underneath these two mirrors that were on the wall at the bottom of the stairs. So I don't know if they were on that same wall where the handprint was, or maybe it was the adjacent wall. But so the investigator talks about there was like these like two full length mirrors hanging on the wall, and he says that the mirrors could have been potentially like tricking Amanda or throwing off her perception of the room. Like if she's kind of like, if she has a really bad concussion and she's kind of like delirious in a way, she's like seeing, maybe she's like seeing her reflection but not knowing it's herself, like thinking it's someone else. So she's trying to get to the mirror, or she thinks that the mirror, and I don't really know what he meant by this. He didn't really explain, but he says, or the mirror was casting light up the stairs. So I don't know what that, he's like, or she thought the mirror was casting light up the stairs, or she was using the mirror to possibly see her own injuries to assess how bad they were. So because there is the two mirrors and then there's like a large dark area of blood underneath that, so she was like laying by those mirrors. So he says it could have been, yeah, like either throwing off her perception of the room or casting light up the stairs, or she was just trying to look in the mirror and see how bad her injury was. Um, so that was just interesting, extra pieces that weren't actually in the Unsolved Mysteries episode, but I just wanted to mention them because they are quite interesting. What do you think, like when he says the casting light up the stairs? I don't really know what her thinking that would do. I was hoping he would like explain what he meant by that, but he just said, oh, she was her thinking that it was casting light up the stairs. And I was just like, interesting. So I don't know.
I
So what do
don't
you think
know.
of like those extra pieces that I mentioned?
Yeah, it's interesting because I was listening to a podcast and they were saying like, "Oh, Unsolved Mysteries is like notorious and like scrutinized often because they leave key things out to make it seem like it's more mysterious than it actually is." But then they said this case was like one of the exceptions because they felt like there really wasn't much that they had left out. But then you explaining that, I had never heard that before, so I guess they did leave some things out. But to be fair, you can't say every single thing. Like investigated this, like, the police for, like, 14 months, so it's not like they can put every single piece in there. But what you said, I think, is, like, makes it almost, yeah, critical to maybe it was an accident, like, that's kind of point not an accident, I guess. No, no, it doesn't make it seem more like an accident, but it makes it kind of more explainable, like, why she was down there and what was going on while she was down there. 'Cause she had a concussion rather than, like, being scared maybe to go back upstairs. But yeah, so going back to the mirrors, I don't know, maybe, like, if they were casting light, like, maybe there was light coming in from the window upstairs bouncing off the mirrors. Maybe she could have thought it was, like, an opening or, like, a doorway or a window or something. Like, that's what it kinda makes me feel like maybe. But other than that, I really don't know what the casting light would have to do with anything. Um And it totally does make sense that if she did have a concussion, that those mirrors, like, it maybe looked like there was more to the room than there actually was, and she was just, like, thinking that she could go farther back, or I don't know. But then also, yeah, using the mirrors to see herself, to see her reflection, or she didn't even recognize herself, and she's, like, confused, like, standing thinking there was a person there. So, yeah, it's really, like, creepy to think about, actually, and, like, sad and
Y-
scary.
Yeah, it's super. Yeah, it's super creepy, and I kind of find it weird that they did leave those pieces out because those are like very important or like very interesting pieces that I'm glad I just kind of stumbled upon. I wasn't looking for them.
Well,
I think it
yeah,
was on the actually.
well,
Oh,
I do remember them saying that she didn't really have any brain injuries, so it didn't, like, and then that made me feel like, "Oh, so she didn't have any brain injuries, just like the outside, the broken bone, but her, like, brain wasn't affected at all." But then when you say she had a concussion, like, that definitely it definitely makes it seem like they were kind of trying to sway it to be like, "Oh, she was fully aware and conscious because her brain wasn't affected at all." But that's really not completely true, so, yeah, that's interesting.
yeah, and who knows, like, the narrative purposes that things get left out. Like, obviously, there's a story they need to tell or wanna tell, and also, like you said, yeah, they investigated it for 14 months, and this episode's 50 minutes long, so there's gonna be tons of stuff that
Yeah,
they
they had to
can't
cut
put
some
in there.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, but I just found those really I think it was on the Reddit rabbit hole, someone had posted a link to this website. It's Netflix affiliated this website, so it must be, like, just a place where they put all this extra stuff because it had, like I said, extra crime scene photos and had those extra videos. So I was glad that I was able to see them because yeah, I just think they're very interesting. And the concussion part specifically, because yeah, you mentioned there was no brain injury, but like I don't think a concussion, I mean, I'm not an expert obviously, but I don't think a concussion is a physical, you can't tell physically that there's a concussion. So in an
Mhm.
autopsy, it's not going to come up that there's a
Yeah,
concussion. I mean, maybe
yeah,
there is some way medically, but it's not the same as if there's like, yeah, like literal brain damage from like being struck on the head or something.
right, yeah,
So like it was, but also this is in a case of a severe concussion. So obviously there's different levels of concussion. So if all these things are true and it's like Amanda, like if the swipe marks are her, and also might not even be like the like ritual or like calming ritual that people do. Could also just be, couldn't it be from her legs flailing around? Like with these swipe marks could be your own feet that are just like going back and forth because she's like flailing around. It's possible, but
yeah. Was it, like, foot marks that made the impressions? Like, from my mind, it was, like, someone's fingers, like, going back and forth as if they were trying to rub out, like, a footprint. I think they brought that up in the documentary. It was, like, it looked like someone's finger had gone through the blood because they were trying to wipe out a footprint. So, yeah,
so I think that's
I don't
why
know.
she says that given the concussion theory, like it was Amanda with her fingers
Oh,
going
yeah, yeah.
rubbing back and
Okay.
forth, which is probably why I guess yeah. If it's but they obviously, like you said, they've never found any other DNA in that blood. So either it was Amanda who did that, or if this person was wearing gloves and just used their hand to. But that's risky. I feel like even if you're wearing gloves, like you'd be too nervous to even touch it with anything. Because like also gloves are like things from your clothes. Like you can leave fibers
Yeah.
behind that you don't even see. Like forensic files tells you that all the time, right? Like these like little microscopic like fibers from your shirt or something. So the closer you get to the blood, more likely that you're gonna. Although I
Yeah,
guess
leave
if there
something.
is an attacker, like it's not going to be that time wiping it out that's going to leave them something. It's probably during the actual killing that something was left behind, like a fiber or something. But I don't know. Yeah, like so it's just interesting. I don't know, but the mirror thing is creepy, and it's also just sad because like uh, she was found on Monday, like afternoon, and if she died or was attacked or whatever on the Saturday night right after the phone call with her husband cut out, that's 2 days. So she could have been alive for any amount of time, whether it's a full day or something, but just like laying there it, in any type of, whether it was concussion, whether she was delusional, whether she was fully aware, I don't know. But there also is a point when obviously, okay, I won't get into that because we'll kind of leave that for our discussion at the end. I don't want to give too much stuff away, but yeah, so those are kind of like the forensics and the autopsy and the information that was there from the scene. So now I'm going to get a little bit more into the like investigation theories and the suspects or potential suspects. So the police, as explained in Unsolved Mysteries, so the police ruled out suicide and natural death almost immediately. So really, there's only like foul play, suicide, natural death, or accidental death. So those are like really the four pathways, I guess you could say. And they ruled out there's no evidence of suicide and natural death is ruled out. So that really only leaves accidental death or foul play, murder as the causes. So the investigation considered several theories. So one was that the official police theory was that Amanda fell down the stairs in, by accident and remained alive for up to 48 hours from when she was last on the phone with Lee on Saturday night all the way to her body was found on Monday. One possibility suggested that Amanda may have tripped over the dog and hit her head on the piggy bank as she was going down the stairs, which would be how the ceramic piece ended up embedded in her forehead. It would also be why there was pieces on the stairway leading down and why the piggy bank was broken. And the police also say that there was a small divot on the wall directly behind the piggy bank, which is consistent with this theory. So like if she had hit it, if she tripped and like hit her head on that, it could have pushed the piggy bank back into the wall and left a little like mark on the wall. So that's one thing that could explain that. However, they said that there was like a laundry basket at the top of the stairs that was filled with clothes, and that was not disturbed at all. Even if she did fall, it remains puzzling why, if she was capable of standing at the bottom of the stairs, why she did not attempt to climb back up. Because if we say it's just an accident and there was no one else at all in the basement other than herself, then those footprints at the bottom of the stairs that are like facing up the stairs, so as if someone's standing at the bottom and staring up, she was able to get herself up and standing, but never made any attempt at all to climb up the stairs, which is super weird. So, like maybe there was someone up there who that she was afraid of, didn't want to go back up there. Also, one thing that's super weird is that there were no animal paw prints at all in the basement. So this proved that neither the cat or the dog went downstairs to check on their owner who was in distress at the bottom of the stairs. So the question is, why would they not even go down at all? And then the question comes up like, was there someone in the home that was physically preventing them from going downstairs? That to me is weird. I don't understand. Like, I feel like dogs, especially, are so, they're man's best friend. Like, they're obsessed with their owner, right? Like, I just can't see it being fathomable that their owner would go down the stairs and be in distress and have the dog not even once try to go down. Like there's not a single paw print at all in any of the blood in the basement. So the animals never went down in the basement, which to me is weird that they would have their owner there for like 24 hours, 48 hours, whatever, and not even going down there to check. To me, that's weird.
It is, yeah, that is weird, and, like, when I first thought about this, I'm like, "That doesn't make any sense." Like, for sure, the dogs would be down there, and there'd be blood everywhere, and then, like, footprints in the blood, and then blood up the stairs with the bloody footprints of the dog, but then, like, I kind of went down the Reddit rabbit hole a little bit too, and while this is just Reddit, like, some people had some good points that they brought up about this, and one of them was, like, they said that their dog, like, their pets, if, like, they themselves are acting weird or, like, crying or, like, sick and, like, throwing up or something, like, their dogs don't want anything to do with them, and they don't even go in the same room. If they're, like, acting, like, weird and sketchy, like, their dogs avoid them at all costs. And, like, I guess that kinda makes sense because you think of, like, a dog that's like a like, some dogs are especially trained to, like, comfort you, like, that's like their comfort animals, or, like, dogs that can, like, detect seizures and stuff. Like, those dogs are specially trained to be there for you when you are acting weird. And I guess if that was, like, a natural thing that dogs did, you wouldn't have to train them to do that. But I guess 'cause it is normal for a lot of dogs to just be, like, sketched out and be like, "Fuck no, I'm not going anywhere near that scene." And so, like, people are thinking, like, maybe that is what happened. Or if she was, like, down there, like, yelling or something, like, the dogs could have been scared, or the dog could have been scared. Maybe the dog thought that he was in trouble because she was yelling, so he didn't wanna go down there. Or, yeah, he's just because she was acting so weird, he wasn't gonna go near her. And then also, like, after, like, a day or so, maybe a lot of the blood was dry, and they did go down there, and they just didn't make any footprints because the blood had already dried. And, like, that was brought up again as if, like, when Lee comes home, he goes down there and checks on her and then runs back up the stairs, and he didn't make any footprints either. So the blood obviously was dry enough where him walking on it wasn't gonna disturb it. So they're thinking like, "Oh, maybe because like, it was the dog could have been hungry and would go down there eventually to, like, see what's going on, want some food, but the blood was dry at that point, so it didn't actually make any disturbance." So, I mean, those are good points that, like, the animals could have gone down there, just there was no sign of it because it was, like, later. So, something to think about.
That's true. That's true. But wouldn't it be still be, like, sticky?
I
Like,
would
you
think
I mean, I guess
maybe,
but
like,
you said
in
Lee
the
didn't leave
pool
any.
that big pool of blood, I feel like would definitely still be sticky, maybe, but, like, maybe it's just at the base of the stairs there wasn't enough for it to still be sticky. It maybe could have been completely dry. Because I mean, it was, like, 48 hours later, 42 hours later or something, right? Especially when Lee went down, so I don't know. Or maybe the dog could even went down the stairs, didn't even go, like, on the floor, but could have, like, seen the scene and then ran back upstairs, was like, "Hell no," kinda thing. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's just super, yeah, super creepy. Um, yeah, like, one of the things that they mentioned in the Unsolved Mysteries was they say, "Was there someone in the house physically preventing the dogs from going downstairs?" I don't think that's like, I don't think the person who killed her is gonna stay in the house for 48 hours preventing the dogs from going down there, like, to me, that seems weird. Um,
Well, yeah,
so I don't
that's
know what you
another
think.
thing, like, if there was somebody in the house that pushed her, and that's what made her hit her head so forcefully, and then she fell down the stairs, or if there was, like, a kerfuffle, right? Because the chair fell over, her phone was broken, and maybe that scared the dog enough for him to not go down the stairs for, like, a whole day, even after that person had left. So that's, like, a possibility as well, especially if Amanda's down there, like, yelling and stuff, and the dog's still scared. He's not necessarily gonna go and try and help or comfort his owner if he's not that kind of dog.
Yeah, that's true. And also it's just weird. I mean, I guess we can do this in our discussion at the end, but like it's also just super weird. Like, why was the phone so far away and the chair? Like to me, that's weird because obviously, I don't know. We'll get into our discussion at the end. I guess I don't want to go too off the rails now. But so yeah, so like the accident theory was something that did come up that she just tripped over the dog and fell. The other theory was that it was an intruder or a stalker. So they actually interview some neighbors of Amanda's from in Unsolved Mysteries, and some of the neighbors confirmed that around the time of Lee's final phone call with Amanda, which was around 7 o'clock on Saturday night, they could hear the dog Ruby barking loudly, which was unusual for the household. So it's not like they always heard the dog barking all the time. It obviously for them to make note of the fact that they heard the dog barking at a very specific time means that it wasn't a regular occurrence. And they also did say that there was like a scream coming from the home. So another neighbor said that, like, I think it was a neighbor of that neighbor who said that they saw somebody running through another neighbor's yard around the same time as well. So, with no signs of forced entry, but with evidence such as swipe marks and unusual footprints, please also consider the possibility of an intruder who might have entered using a key or through the unlocked door. So, someone who knew, not someone who broke in and did this, someone who she knew, who she invited in, or someone she knew and they had a key to the house. So those neighbors' accounts are weird. I find it weird that they wouldn't have called the police if they hear a dog barking, which is unusual, and they hear a scream. It's weird that they would just not do anything about that. So that's kind of odd.
Yeah, but another thing is they do bring up this, like, multiple times and or maybe not multiple times, but every time I listen to something about this case, like, that neighborhood was one of the more dangerous ones in the area, and so, like, people creeping into your backyard to, like, steal your cans, like, that had happened to them before, like, steal shit from the backyard or just, like, crime in general was common there, so maybe calling the cops every time you heard somebody, like, let out one yell or a dog barking would, be, like, just irresponsible or, you can't call the cops every time that happens or there'd be cops just there all the time kind of thing. Not necessarily at Amanda's house, but just, like, in that neighborhood. So maybe they're just thinking this is just another one-off, one little thing that they don't have to worry too much about because it wasn't that uncommon.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I guess if we're questioning not calling the police, I find it weird that Lee would not have called the police after the phone call and then her not answering, not even just not answering right away, but the whole next day not hearing from her. Like to me, that's weird. So, but I don't want to get into too much of into like thinking he's did it or whatever because I don't think he did, and I don't, and I feel bad because obviously I'm sure he beats himself up over it too. But to me, that's weird that you would not, because I mean I think it's normal. Like we've all been on the phone. Like I'm every time I'm on the phone with mom, like her phone dies every single time. So it's like it's not unusual for like a phone to die mid call, and then it's like sometimes it'll take her like a half an hour or whatever to get back to me because she needs to charge it and it needs to whatever. Fine. So like find that normal, but like for them to go the whole next day, especially when they had like he says that they had a whole conversation all day Saturday. Like there's a text chain Friday, Saturday. So then for them to be like radio silence on Sunday and do nothing is just weird to me. But
Yeah, well, maybe they had gotten into an argument or something, and then he just thought maybe she was just, like, super mad at him, didn't wanna talk to him or something. That could be possible, even though he never actually says they were in an argument at that particular time, but that could be a possibility. But, I mean, yeah, it is kind of weird, especially since that wasn't usual for them to, like, not talk for a whole day since, like, this is the first time they'd ever actually been apart, so it does seem kinda strange. But then again, that's, like, one of those things that you look back, it's like 2020 vision, right? Where, like, or hindsight's 2020, right? Like, thinking back, yeah, that's super weird, but in the moment, maybe it's like he said, like, she could have been busy, he was really busy and just, like, didn't have time to really think about it. Um, so yeah. Um,
and I think like calling 911 to most people is a very obviously uncomfortable thing. You really don't want to do it unless you know for sure. Like, you know what I mean? So, I mean, I feel like
yeah,
people
especially if it's
will make
overreaction.
excuses in their mind. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, like if, yeah, like if he sent the police there and then there's nothing, everything's fine. She's like, you know, pissed that the police came, whatever. Like, you don't know. I guess like it's just like, to me, it's most people like I feel like it's normal for people to like come up with a million excuses in their mind. Oh, it's probably nothing. I don't want to call 911 and get the police involved for like nothing. So like you kind of talk yourself out of it in a way. And then obviously you regret that later when it is something that you should have called 911 for, but in the moment your mind doesn't go to the worst thing. So like calling 911 seems like an overreaction. But obviously in
Yeah.
hindsight it's easy to say. You should
But
have.
also, like, he didn't, like, reach out to, like, her like, Amanda's family at all to, like, see if someone could maybe try and call her. Maybe she didn't wanna answer the phone for him, but she would answer for, like, one of them or something. Like, he never did that either, which again makes you just think he wasn't worried about it because, yeah, he just wasn't thinking that it was a huge deal. So he didn't reach out to anybody really. So I don't know. And some people think that that's super strange, but in the moment, it maybe just wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Um so yeah, so the neighbors had these accounts of like this person running through the yard and like this yell and the dog barking. And additionally, police speculated about a possible stalker who took advantage of Lee being away. So if they were being stalked by someone, then maybe this was a person who knew that Lee was away, which is what I kind of alluded to earlier when I said that could be a reason or explanation as to why the one weekend Lee goes away is when this happens. It's like because the person knew it's now or never because they're never away from each other. So something like that. Like if the person did know, which kind of goes into this next theory, because there was another theory that's kind of floating around there involving Lee's sister, because Lee says in the Unsolved Mysteries that his sister hated Amanda. And Lee and Amanda had previously called, or I guess Lee had previously called child services on his sister due to concerns about Lee's nieces and the fact that his sister was using heavy drugs. So his sister was a drug user, she had kids, and he was concerned about their well-being. So he had actually called child services and caused this whole thing with his sister. And so because of that, his sister really held a grudge against him and also against Amanda, and he and Amanda just or Amanda and his sister just never really did get along. So it was kind of suggested that maybe she might have hired someone to enter the home and kill Amanda while Lee was away. Because if you remember, Lee was in Saskatchewan to help his mother settle their father's estate. So his sister would know that her brother's going home. Like that would be something that his direct family members would know. Like, oh, Lee's in Saskatchewan helping mom with the house or helping whatever, right? So that was like kind of a theory that was going out there as to like how she would know that Lee was gone. And if she also knew Lee and Amanda were always together, it could have been like a crime of opportunity too. Like this is the time. So either she killed or like it was suggested that maybe she had hired someone to enter the home. I don't know why they didn't say like it could have been her herself that did it. They kind of just say maybe she hired someone to do it, but like it also could have been maybe she had a key to that. I don't know if she would have a key if they didn't like her or didn't get along. I don't know. They'd want to have a key, but is that someone that maybe Amanda could have opened the door for? I don't know though. If they know, like, I don't know. They didn't really get too much into the sister other than the fact that they had called child services on her. She was a drug user. So I don't know if like the relationship was so bad that like Amanda wouldn't open the door if his sister was at the door, or if maybe she still would. So like maybe you know what I'm saying? So it could have been a thing of like because I was thinking like if Amanda's or if Lee's sister shows up there, Amanda opens the door and then they get into an argument and his sister pushes her down the stairs and then just leaves her and leaves. And then that's why we don't know. That's why like not knowing if that door was locked or unlocked is a thing because like if it was unlocked, she could have just left, walked out of the house. But they didn't find fingerprints is the only thing. Like they did say that they didn't find fingerprints anywhere in the house. They didn't have fingerprints that Lee's sister was in the house or anything. So unless his sister is very meticulously, like maybe she wore gloves, whatever, which is possible. But I don't know. Like that to me, so they didn't really get too much into it. But however, they do say that they do interview Lee's sister, and they say they found no evidence that ever linked her to the crime. So they don't really get into it. They don't really say what evidence well, they don't have any evidence, but I'm assuming they would have looked through her phone history. They would have like obviously interviewed her, got her story, but they don't really explain like that she had an alibi or that anything. They just kind of just mention that there was no evidence, so she's not considered a suspect. But I kind of wanted them to go a little bit more into depth. Like, what made them not like? They must have asked her, "Where were you?" And she gives an alibi, and they confirm that, but they didn't go into that. So I don't know, unless you found something in the Reddit rabbit hole that explained that. But like, I wanted to know, other than what they just interviewed her and said, "Oh, it sounds legit. That's fine." Like, but to me, it's like I want to know more. What?
Yeah,
How
like,
much did
they
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 investigate
didn't
her?
even, like, release her name or anything, so I feel like it was, like, a very much like they looked into her, it was obvious she wasn't a part of it, or not even obvious, but they just really didn't have anything that could link her to it, and that was the end of it, so but yeah, I really didn't find anything else that talked about her at all.
Do you think it's like a possibility?
Like, that's one thing
Like,
that I thought of, like, she could have knocked on the door, and then Amanda opened the door for her maybe, even though they didn't get along, like, you're never gonna think that, like, your sister-in-law is gonna murder you, right? So, if maybe she did open the door, and then they got into, like, this little scuffle or something, and then, yeah, she got pushed down the stairs, and then the sister just, like, bolts out of there, not really leaving anything because she wasn't there for that long. I don't know.
but
They
also I'm
I feel
thinking
like the
too, like,
police, like, ruling her out makes me just feel like she really didn't have anything to do with it.
yeah, yeah. I don't know how much I trust the police though, but
But they looked into
I will
this, like,
say,
a lot, right? I mean, they were part
yeah.
of the Netflix documentary, like, willingly to talk about it, and they they were suspicious at first, like, they were the ones that thought it was a homicide at first, and then they investigated, for 14 months and then agreed to do the documentary, and so I feel like they really did do as much as they could probably. I don't know, I'm not suspicious of the police in this case.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, nothing yeah, I mean, there's nothing they did in this case. I mean, it seemed very thoroughly but just in general, the police are annoying. In most a lot of cases, it comes up like the police were lax or they didn't follow up on stuff. So I guess in this case, it seemed all fine. But to me, I was also thinking not necessarily Lee's sister, but also somebody, if it was an intruder or someone that she knew or whatever, they got into a fight, like, it could have been a possibility that they pushed her down the stairs, not in an attempt to kill her. They just pushed her down the stairs and then left. But they didn't realize the severity of the injury. They thought maybe that she had just fallen and whatever, she'll get up, and they just bolted. Um, so maybe that's the thing. Like it was an argument,
Yeah.
but they just pushed her, and like not in like they went there to kill her. It would have been, I guess, considered what second degree murder because it caused her death,
It was like
even though it wasn't
yeah,
intentional
well, or like
or
involuntary manslaughter
manslaughter.
or something. Yeah.
Yeah,
They got in a fight, pushed her, she fell down the stairs. Yeah, and they didn't even, like, realize how bad it was, like, how bad she was bleeding because they didn't even stay to, like, look at that.
yeah,
Another thing
because it
about the
almost
sister, like, was she even, like, local? Did she live close to them even? Like, maybe that was a thing, like, she didn't even live close enough to drive over there, casually, like, talk to her, and then get out of there. Like, did she live in the same town? She could have lived in another province. Right? Like, we don't even
yeah,
know. So, maybe that's one of the things
yeah,
that was like, well, she lived, like, a province away, so there's no way she drove over there, killed her, and drove home. So, that kinda thing.
but someone else could have that she
Is
hired. Um, no, I know. Obviously, I don't. All just my own opinion. Obviously, I have nothing to base this on. But I just find it because what I do because what I was thinking when I was researching this because like I if it was an intruder, whether someone she knew or not, to me it's very weird. Like if the intention was to kill her, I find it very weird that they would like push her down the stairs and then leave because obviously they weren't in the basement at all. So it's like, if you were there to kill someone and you were in an argument, you push her down the stairs, why would you just push her down the stairs and then assume, "Oh, she'll die. That's it. I'm gonna leave." You would like I feel like you would wanna go down and make sure that they're dead, right? Like, because who knows, like, Amanda could have been fine, and then they see the person, or she can give a statement. Like, I feel like it's very, like, if your intention is to go and kill someone, you're not just gonna push them down the stairs and not look twice, "Bye." Like, no, you're gonna wanna make sure that you do it, or that you finish, like, you kill them, right? Because to me, that's what I was thinking of. Like, if this is someone who was intentionally to kill, that's why I think maybe it was almost an accident. Like, not someone who was trying to kill her, but just like pushed her, got into an altercation. She fell down the stairs, and then they thought, oh, she's probably going to be fine or whatever, and just left. Because that's why it's like, I find it weird.
yeah, that's what makes me think that it was an accident, whether it was an accident what like, Amanda tripped herself or someone pushed her. I think the, like, intent was never for her to die, I think, is, like, the ultimate thing that I come to, but it's still suspicious because, like, to me, like, she had to hit that, like, porcelain piggy bank so hard that it, like, broke and was, like, embedded into her head so much so that it, like, broke her bone, and then she bled out from that. It's just because she just, like, tripped. I just feel like it wouldn't have that much enough force, you know?
Yeah, but I feel like she could have also broken that bone just from the fall, like hitting it on the stairs on her way down. Like, it does
That's
not
true. I
necessarily the
guess she
piggy bank
tumbled
that
down
did
the
that.
stairs.
Like, yeah. So, like, the gash could have been from the piggy bank, but then the bone broken was just like her hitting the stairs with
Yeah, I
force or something.
guess. And, like, yeah, and I think people brought up, like, she had bruises, like you had said, on, like, her knees and her elbows and her hips. And that could have been from her tumbling down the stairs, but also I feel like if she was, like, slipping in her blood and, like, falling multiple times on her elbows and falling on her knees over and over again, that could possibly make those bruises as well. So, I don't know. It's yeah. But the thing with
And
her just, like,
also
not coming up those stairs is, like, the weirdest part.
yeah, and one thing going to the bruises, I'll just say it now so I don't forget, like, I'm not really an expert, obviously, in how the body works, but, like, if you so, like, say because if she died if she was alive for some amount of time, if she got the bruises from like falling down the stairs or whatever, like you would have to be alive for a significant amount of time after you got hit for the bruises to form, right? Like if you got hit and then died immediately, you wouldn't get bruises that form, would you? I feel like that happens when you're alive.
I
I
don't
don't know,
think
or
they
maybe
would
that's
form
really off.
immediately, but it doesn't I mean, depending on, like, severity, like, sometimes a bruise can come in, like, minutes, right? So, if it's especially if it's hit super
Yeah,
hard and
true.
it's a bad bruise, like, it can be there in a couple minutes. So
Okay, that's true. Yeah, that's true. And also, she had no defensive wounds on her body either, right? Like she had no defensive wounds on her hands, which usually, if someone's attacked, there's some form of defensive wounds, um, which is there wasn't in this case either. So that's also something that shows that there was no person responsible.
yeah, but then the fact
Um,
that the chair fell over and her phone was, like, smashed on the floor, it makes like, why did that happen? Makes me think, like, someone was in there or, like and another thing that, like, somebody brought up or something was, like, someone had tried to get in, they were, like, knocking on the window or, like, knocking on the door, and it, like, scared her, and, the dog was barking, and it startled her so much that she, like, got up really fast off the chair fell over, and maybe someone was, like, peeking in the window, it scared her, she, like, ran and then dropped her phone, and that's why she fell down the stairs because she was running, and that much force is what made her hit her head so hard that she fell down the stairs, and her phone slid across the floor. Like, that's impossible, right? She got scared. Something scared
I
her
get
so
like
much,
will her
and the
phone
dog,
fly
like
that far though?
yeah, this
And
came up in,
again,
like,
it's
the Reddit forum as well. It was like if those phones, like, especially if you don't have a case on them, like, they'll slide, like, tens of like 10 feet away from you from where you drop it sometimes, so, I don't know. Like, I feel like it's possible or, like, she got up and then she just, like, dropped it right there, didn't even slide. It smashed, and she was, like, just too scared to even pick it up and then tripped. I don't know.
she was sitting like, but the chair was on the opposite side of the table. Like for example, like the table or the chair that she was sitting in, I'm assuming the chair that's knocked over is the one she was sitting in. So she's sitting there, but her phone is found like on the other side of the table, but like away from it, not even like right directly on the other side, like far, like away from it, like 20 feet, 30 feet away. So it's not like she would have dropped it. I mean, I guess she could have just gotten off
Yeah,
the
I
chair
mean
really fast
yeah,
and
she
then
got off
went
the
there
chair
to where the phone was dropped
yeah,
to like,
chair
cause
fell
it was by the
over.
door, I think.
Yeah, and she had it in her hand, she was, like, getting up, like, in my mind, she's getting up to, like, maybe go check to make sure the door's locked or, like, going to, like, shut the blinds or something if people or someone's peeking in, and then the dog's all like, riled up, barking, she trips over the dog or something, like, like, you picture this, like, all this could have happened, like, just could have, like,
Yeah.
chaos in the house for someone that was just outside, not even in the house. But, like, the dog gets riled up, he starts barking because there's someone peeking in the window, she yells because it scares her, and then just, like, trips down
Yeah.
the stairs, like, super
Yeah.
hard,
And
and,
then
like,
that,
just yeah, and then she's just so disoriented down there, like you said, got a concussion, she just couldn't get up the stairs.
yeah,
It
that's,
seems
yeah, that's true. Cause I mean,
possible, right? When you think about it like that?
yeah, cause like, so we hear, cause like Lee said that he heard the dog barking and she was like saying, be quiet, be quiet. And then he hears the dog yelp. And then he said he hears her walking and then like a crunching sound and the phone goes dead. So like the crunching or the whatever would be probably the phone hitting the ground and then it cuts out. So like, but the dog yelps and then she walks. I think that's how he explains it. Like he said he hears the dog yelping and then I can hear like the sound of her walking and then like a crunching sound. And then it just cuts out.
Yeah,
So why would the dog be yelping?
maybe she stepped on the dog by accident, like, the dog's all riled up, and then
Mm.
she just, like, steps on him, the dog yelps, that maybe the yelp, like, scares her enough to, like, chuck her phone by accident, and then she falls down the stairs because someone's, like, peeking in the window. I don't know.
Yeah, true.
Like,
Because I feel like
that
the
would
only
scare the
reason for
shit
that
out of
dog to
me.
be barking.
If you saw someone
Yeah,
peeking in your window,
true.
like, that'd be enough for me to fucking scream, throw my phone, right? The dog's
Yeah.
riled up because 'cause you're riled up, trip over the dog, like, when you think
Yeah.
about it in, like, that sort of situation, doesn't seem impossible.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Because I was always thinking, like, the phone was super weird to me, like, why was the phone so far? But I guess, yeah, you're right, it could you throw it with enough force, and if you're scared, you just, like, just throw it. It can go 100 or however long, the other side of the room. So I guess
Yeah, it
it's
could slide
possible.
across the floor, even if she wasn't right there, right? Like, she would've dropped it and it slid.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Um, yeah. So who was this person creeping in her window also? But also too, like you said, there was a dangerous area. There was a back alley, like right, they had a gate, like in their backyard, had a gate, but then on the other side of the gate was like an alley that like I think Lee says in Unsolved Mysteries that like Amanda was concerned about that alley because there was like people always kind of back there. Like they had people coming in through the gate to like steal cans from like their garbage can or something. So there were people who would like go onto their property. So maybe this was someone who maybe not even someone peeking in the window, but just although would it and like the dog was barking because he saw the person. I don't know outside and
well, the dog could have heard somebody outside in the backyard. That could have been enough to make the dog
mhm,
bark and, like,
yeah.
startle her. Or she could have, like, looked out the window and saw someone in her backyard, even if they weren't peeking in the window, right? Like, or saw someone, like, opening her gate. Like, that'd be creepy to see someone creeping in your backyard, right? Especially when you're home alone. So, you think about stuff like that,
Yeah.
it just seems like that's what could have happened. And especially now
Yeah.
when you talk about that concussion, which is something I didn't hear about before, it makes me lean even more towards an accident. Like, she fell downstairs and then just didn't have the wherewithal to get up because of her head injury.
But you had the wherewithal to like stand up at the bottom of the stairs. So it's like but then not the wherewithal to actually climb up the stairs or even attempt. Like there's no, like you said, there's no blood or anything. And if she was covered with blood, so like if she even attempted at all to get up the stairs, then there would
Y
be
y
blood on the stairs.
Yeah, or again,
That's what's weird
maybe
to me.
someone was, like, trying to get in the door or, like, peeking in the window, and so she just thought that she didn't wanna come up the stairs because she thought that maybe they were at her house or something. Or maybe somebody, like, did come in her house, and so she was, like, hiding down there, and then they left, and then by that time, she was just too weak that she couldn't get up the stairs. I don't know. There's, like, so many possibilities.
Yeah. And it's like so creepy to think like just someone standing at the bottom of the stairs, or like my vision of like if there was someone standing at the top of the stairs, that's creepy too. It's like someone, it's just creepy, super creepy. Um, There was also like so one of the other theories was that like maybe Amanda was having an affair because police noted that upon finding Amanda's body, Lee said that Amanda was wearing like a fancier pair of underwear than she would typically wear. So people thought like, oh, maybe there was a possibility that she was having an affair and she might have been expecting someone to come over to their house, especially since Lee was away. But however, there's absolutely no evidence at all from Amanda's phone or online chat history that substantiated this theory. So probably
Yeah.
not
Also,
at
another
all.
thing was, like, was that, like, a new pair of underwear that he had never seen before? Or because it makes me think, like, oh, like, sh there was, like, a pile of laundry at the top of the stairs, maybe it was laundry day, so she just, like, put on this underwear that she wouldn't normally wear because all her other stuff was in the wash. Like, to me, it
Yeah.
was like, is this a brand new pair that he had never seen before? Which would make it seem like, "Oh, that's kinda weird." But if it's just a pair that she had, just never wore, then because it's laundry day, like, that's again, that's can be explained away, so I don't know.
Yeah, because he doesn't really say, like, "I'd never seen them." It's just, like, they were fancier than what she would typically wear. So, like, he's never said, like, "I've never seen them," but
Yeah, yeah.
he's just never seen her wearing I don't know. Just weird, but the police say that there's no evidence at all, obviously. Like, if she's having, like, an affair where someone's coming over to the house, like, there would be phone history, a chat history, or something.
And there'd
There's,
be
like, no
someone
evidence.
else's DNA in there, right? Like, if she was letting somebody in the house have an affair with them, like, there was, like, no foreign DNA found on
Yeah,
her at all, right? So, I guess, like, that doesn't
yeah,
mean that person had come over that night, but, yeah, there's just no evidence that anyone else had ever been there, so and there for
yeah,
sure
like, it
would be
could've been
some
2
sort of
separate things, like,
evidence.
she could've yeah, like, she could've been having an affair, but she also just had an accident and fell down the stairs, and it's not related to that.
Yeah,
But
yeah, exactly.
yeah, but again, there's no evidence at all to suggest that, so that was just kind of something that they put it's just funny that they, like, put that in the Netflix in the episode, but they didn't put in, like, all the stuff I said about the concussion and stuff. Like, to me, that's more compelling and, like, interesting, but I guess they
Well, yeah,
wanna make it more mysterious.
yeah, it goes into the theory that, oh, they, like, pick and choose things to put in to make it seem more mysterious than it actually was. Because yeah, that stuff about the concussion makes it not as mysterious kind of because it's like, yeah, that explains why she was down there and had a concussion and couldn't get back up the stairs kinda thing. So
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, and then, also one thing that they do mention in the episode is that they did kind of at one point make put out, like, and ask for, like, tips or, like, assistance from the public in solving this, and they said that no tips at all came from anyone, which they said in and of itself is also very strange or very unusual that there would not even be, because even when there's something like that happening where there's tip lines, there's people come out of the woodwork all the time and give like false tips or like just crazy tips that end up not being related at all. So the fact that there was like just literally nothing that came in was very unusual. But if it was an accident, she just had an accident in her own home, there would be no tips. She wasn't out anywhere. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's easier. It's like if someone just leaves their house and goes missing, then there could be tips. Oh, I saw her here. I saw her here. But if she's not leaving her house, there would be no sightings of her anywhere. You know what I'm saying? So, like, to me, that kind of leads more into the fact that it was an accident because of
Yeah,
that.
but also if there was someone there that pushed her down the stairs or saw her go down the stairs, and the fact that the police have no leads, like, there's no way that person's gonna come forward, right? There's like, "I totally got away with this if I just, like, stay away from it altogether." So, I mean, that's a possibility too, and that would be the only other person in the world that would know. Why would they come forward? So and
But
the
yeah,
neighbors
and
did
also
say they
like,
saw somebody running, right? So that could be that person, and they're just like, "That was a close call," and I'm just, like, never gonna bring it up again. So, yeah.
yeah, but like no one else saw this person like going in. I guess not. I mean, if it's at nighttime, it's like what, between 7 and 7:30 on October. It's what's Yeah. I'm trying to think of like what the sunlight level is like at that time. Like it's not fully dark, but getting dark, I
Yeah,
would say.
but also because that area was, like, this is what, like, I heard in other sources, it was, like, a dangerous area. There was a lot of homeless people or dangerous people that would just, like, lurk around. So people seeing a random person lurking around, wouldn't be startling. It'd be like an everyday kind of thing. So they're not gonna come forward and
But
be like,
like
"Oh,
seeing
yeah,
somebody
I saw this
like
person,"
seeing
and be
somebody
like,
go
"Well,
through the gate though.
yeah, maybe they didn't though." Like, nobody saw actually anyone in their house, but they could see just people, like, wandering around, running around because it was, like, a dangerous area, you know? So it just wasn't out of the ordinary. And also, like, people in that kinda community where they see danger all the time and they see crimes and they're, like, kind of involved in that lifestyle, they're gonna avoid the police anyway, even if they do see a crime, right? Because that's just kind of the culture, like, "Don't trust the police" kinda thing in a lot of these cases,
That's true.
so they're just not gonna come
But I
forward
also
at all.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. But I also was thinking too, if it was an intruder or someone, I think that that would make the dog bark more. And there's a person in your house, an unknown person, like the dog would be barking uncontrollably, probably trying to attack this person. That's why I was also thinking like if there was an intruder, like the dog could have bitten this person, but there's no blood obviously at the
Maybe,
scene. I don't know.
but if the
I just think the
person, like,
dog would.
intimidated the dog, like, or hit the dog or something, the dog could, like, back off and is not gonna fight if it's not, like, a vicious kinda dog, right? Like,
Would be
just
barking, but
maybe at first, but, like, some dogs, it's like, I don't think it's hard to, like, get control over them, like, super quickly by, like, just, like, even just, like, yelling or hitting them, the dog's gonna, like, be like, "That's enough." If they're not that kinda dog that's trained to fight, right?
yeah, that's true.
Just like a black lab, right?
True.
Like, those kinda dogs are very, like, people, like, loving, and they're not gonna fight you probably because that's not their nature, especially if they're not, like, trained to do that kinda thing. So I feel like if, yeah, the dog could have barked at somebody, and that person could have come in and intimidated the dog, and then that was the end of the dog fighting back.
Yeah, that's true. But I was also thinking that doesn't come up at all, and I don't even know. It's probably stupid to mention it, but I was thinking like, wouldn't because Lee said that he came home and had to let the dog out to go to the bathroom, but the dog was in the house for 48 hours before Lee got there. So was there like shit all around the house? Like, where was the dog going to the bathroom? Like, that's what I want to know. It's
Yeah,
just weird to bring up, but
it did come
also,
up
I
in
mean,
another source that I had listened to that, yeah, there was, like, urine on the carpet or on the floor or something from the dog, yeah, not being let out for those couple days.
oh, okay. So that makes okay. I was because that's what I was thinking. Obviously, it didn't come up in Unsolved Mysteries, and I assume there probably was, but um, if there wasn't, that would be very weird and like kind of unexplainable, really. But yeah. So the um the chief medical examiner stated that Amanda's manner of death is still undetermined. Despite the evidence collected from the broken piggy bank and the scattered ceramic shards to the forensic details and the various witness statements, the exact circumstances surrounding Amanda's tragic death remain unclear. And while the police officially lean toward the theory of an accidental fall that left Amanda alive for up to 48 hours, Amanda's family does not believe that her death was an accident and is convinced that foul play was involved. So that's kind of where it is. It still remains unsolved. So yeah, this case is so weird to me. It just sticks with me because as we're like talking it through, I'm kind of leaning more towards an accident because of just the various things and even like the things I mentioned with the concussion and stuff that makes it more clear. Um, but it's still very weird. I don't know. I'm still can't like obviously say one way or the other for full certainty, but I'm kind of leaning towards accidental at this point, given
Yeah.
the lack of evidence.
I am too, but then it's like all these circumstances had to, like, come together into one to make this possible, like, Lee happened to be, like, gone for, like, the first weekend they've been apart ever, and then she just, like, happens to trip and hit her head so hard that she has a concussion and can't get up, and it happens that, like, this injury causes her to lose so much blood that she bleeds out, like, that's why she dies is because she bleeds out, like, people fall down the stairs, but they don't bleed out all the time, right? Like, she could've if she didn't hit her head, like, that certain way, she could've had a concussion, but then eventually been able to get up, but it's because of the blood loss. So it's, like, all these things that, like, compounded on top of each other that's what makes it so weird, like, each of these things actually happened to make this an accident, but yeah, it's super, super
Yeah.
strange.
Like if she didn't hit her head on the piggy bank, and just fell down the stairs, like she could have got a concussion, but it wouldn't have been bleeding like that. So she could have been
Yeah,
like disoriented for 48 hours, but she wouldn't have died necessarily. Although I think you can die from like if it's severe concussion like later if you don't get it treated or
yeah,
whatever.
you can. But there's a
But it
better
was
possibility
blood
that
loss.
Lee could have found her down there and she would have still been alive because she didn't bleed out.
Yeah.
She was just, like, disoriented at the bottom of the stairs kinda thing. Just happened that she
Yeah.
bled so much. 'Cause, yeah, I think it's rare
It
for
just
people to fall down the stairs and die. Like, that's not a thing that happens that often.
yeah. Except what's that other case? The staircase.
The
That other
staircase,
guy
yeah.
who yeah.
Yeah, that's a weird one
Um
as well.
that's a weird one too. Maybe we'll do one on that. But yeah, I don't know. It's like the piggy bank, the placement of the piggy bank is just unfortunate. Because if that was like the one thing, like really, if that piggy bank hadn't have been there, she could have been. If it was an accident, she might have been okay. Like we said,
Yeah,
just
she
fall
wouldn't have
down.
smashed her head
But
on something that hard that was gonna make her bleed out because of it. Yeah.
yeah, and like yeah, it's obviously pretty clear that there was no one that touched the piggy bank. Like they didn't use that as a weapon because obviously, like I said, the dust had settled on it, so it hadn't been picked up. But also, I saw something on the Reddit forum too, whereas like somebody was questioning, they're like, why would they even think that it could be the piggy bank? Like if someone's using a weapon, she's like, if you look at the images that they release, like of the ledge with the piggy bank, there's also like a fire poker right behind it. So it's like if someone's going to use a weapon, you're not going to pick up the piggy bank first or use that. Like
Oh,
you're going to go to
yeah.
like the sharp fire poker thing that's behind it.
Also, there was, like, a box cutter right beside that too, like, you pick up that right before you pick up the piggy bank, right? I don't know if it actually was a box cutter,
Yeah.
but it looked like it was in some of the pictures.
Yeah. So it's like the piggy bank would be the last thing that you'd think you would. Um, yeah, so I think it's like, yeah, I don't know. Obviously, I mean, the family's convinced that it's foul play. They don't think that it's an accident. Um, Also, I think too, I don't know, like, obviously I can't speak for the family or know what they have gone through, but I feel like I don't know which one would be worse, that it's an accident or it's murder. Like, I feel like if it's murder, you at least hope that there can be justice and that there could be a resolution if they find the person who did it and then there's like some closure. But the fact that it's an accident, like if it is just an accident, there's never going to be closure for that because you will always think of like all like those crazy set of circumstances that all fell into place for this to happen. Like to me, that's more, I don't know if it's harder to live with. I don't want to say that, but it's more like there's never going to be closure for that versus like if you just hang on to that hope, like maybe they'll find the person who did this, then we can like move on. So I think I don't know if you would like almost convince yourself that it's foul play because you want there to be some type of conclusion. But also if you're murdered, that's way more heinous and horrible and you wouldn't want your loved one to have experienced that.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I feel like for Lee, like, probably, like, the guilt of him, like, him have it happening to, like, go away that weekend. He even said, like, we could go back in time, like, the one thing he would change is, like, he wouldn't have left because then he would have been there to help with whatever had happened, and it wouldn't have happened because he would have been there, so I think for hi like, uh,
You know?
even if it was a murder, though, I feel like he was like, "Well, if I had been there, it would have changed it as well," so regardless, I think he feels guilt about leaving that weekend.
Yeah. And or like or if she had gone with him, then obviously it wouldn't have happened. Like, 'cause the original plan was she was going to go with him, and then just at the last minute decided not to. Um, so yeah, just ultimately like super sad either way. And yeah, like I said, the family's convinced that it's foul play, and obviously it's. I think, like I said, the police have kind of like it's still undetermined. The official cause of death is undetermined, but the police, I think, have kind of leaned into that fact that it was probably an accident, just given like the evidence sort of leads to that. And so just the thought also too of having her like being alive in that basement, even if it was 24 hours, it was 48 hours, or it was like 6 hours, it's still a horrible way
Yeah.
to
Well,
die.
she had
Just
gone into
in
rigor
there.
mortis, right? So it was however long that takes, it was at least that long, which
But I think it
if
only
it
takes like not only a couple hours, isn't it? But I guess they said it was full rigor mortis because I think it starts from like a couple hours. We'll look it up right now. We got
yeah.
time, but I think it's like the process starts pretty quickly after, but like to be in full rigor mortis probably takes.
Yeah, let me okay. Yeah, 6 to 8 hours after death, it says on this Google search.
So
And then
6 to 8 hours.
it stays for, like, 12 for another 12 hours. So, yeah, it takes at least up to 8 hours, 6 to 8 hours, and then it can last for 12 hours. So, that gives a little
So
bit
it's
of a
18
timeline.
hours. Well, it's like it's
Yeah.
18 hours because that was what's confusing to me because in the documentary or in Unsolved Mysteries, the detective says that puts her cause of death at Sunday night or sometime on Sunday. But the autopsy or the medical examiner says the time of death was 7 to 7:30 p.m. Saturday, and also there was a CBC News article on this case that also mentioned that the time of death was Saturday between 7 to 7:30. So to me, that's where I kind of found a little bit of confusion because I didn't know what was the real one. Um, but if rigor mortis, like I didn't know, so rigor mortis only lasts a certain amount of time. Like I thought,
Yeah.
like once you're in rigor mortis, like your body, I don't really even know. I mean, I know what rigor mortis is, but so it stays for
No, it
12
doesn't
hours.
last. Yeah.
It
Yeah, and
doesn't. So
then
it's like they last for 12 hours and then it takes up to 8 hours. So say what? That's 20 hours. So if she was in full rigor mortis, then she couldn't have been dead for any longer than 20 hours.
yeah. What time d was she
So
found again? What time did Lee come home?
um, he came home. I think it was around 3:45 p.m. on the Monday. So that would have put the 20-hour mark would have been at like 7 p.m. Sunday,
Mhm.
or like that would have been 20. Like if she died 7 p.m. Sunday, then 20 hours would have been like 3 o'clock on the Monday.
Right.
So yeah, that was where a little bit of the confusion came in. But either way, like she was alive. So if that makes it even worse, like worse, because if she was alive up until Sunday, then she was there since like 24 hours in the basement, just like laying there, confused. If she had a concussion, she was delirious, losing all this blood, obviously probably in a lot of pain from the fall and also from this huge gash, and just like knowing that there's nothing you can do, knowing that Lee's not home, and that although maybe you'd hope that he would call the police or come home early, I don't know, but um yeah, I don't know. That would just be a horrible way to die. Like just basically be totally helpless. And just it's unfortunate because she had and like she was able to get up and stand up. We know that from the foot impression at the bottom of the stairs. So it's like, but I guess getting up and standing up is a completely different thing than walking up the stairs or crawling up the stairs. Like that takes more physical
Yeah.
exertion.
But also she had a
And also we don't know
concussion.
when she did that.
Yeah, but That's true, like, she could've stood up right away, or it could've been hours after, right? Like, and then she could've collapsed, and that could've been the last thing she did. But, yeah, also, like, um, if she had a concussion, she might not have really been aware of what was happening to her, right? Like, she might not have known she was, like, bleeding out and dying. So, like, there's, like, a little bit of comfort in that where she just was so out of it that she really didn't realize what was happening. And then she could've just, like, laid down and, like, kind of at peace, kind of, because she really didn't know.
Yeah, that's true. Ugh, just so yeah, so horrible. I don't know.
Yeah,
It'd just be
it's
horrible
super sad either way, like, just yeah. Such a freak
either way.
accident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If it was an accident, yeah, like totally freak accident. So, like you said, it's such a all these events coming together, unfortunate or like a lethal combination of all these random things that happen that just allowed this to
Yeah, and
happen,
things
or
that
if it
didn't
was.
happen, like, those neighbors didn't call the police when they heard the dog bark and her yell, like, Lee didn't call the police or call anyone to check on her, like, those 2 things could have made the ending a lot different as well, so, there's a certain amount of things that did happen and a certain amount of things that didn't happen that, like, made this whole thing what it was, so, yeah, it's super sad, and so yeah, it's such a weird case.
Yeah, and then, like I said at the beginning of this, like this was just one of those cases that just stayed in my mind. Like it just something about it, like I don't know, like there's just certain cases you can't even really explain that just are just one of those ones that kind of just stick with you. And like I will like I saw this episode like in the summer, like last summer whenever it came out, and I think about it like not all the time, but like somewhat often. Like it'll just pop in my head when I'm thinking of true crime and like just think of this case. Like it's just so weird to me. So it was just always one that is just baffling to me. And I think I'm obviously leaning more towards thinking it was an accident, given the extra stuff that I mentioned with the concussion and all that. Like makes it more plausible. But there is that little bit because there's like uncertainty. We can't say for sure. There could be someone out there who knows something, and you just don't know. So yeah, it's crazy. It's a crazy crazy case. Did you have any like final thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'm with you that I do think that I'm leaning towards it was like a complete accident where obviously nobody meant for her to fall down those stairs and die. Whether it was whether there was like somebody there that pushed her, I'm not 100% being like no, but I'm leaning towards more maybe she tripped down the stairs and it was a complete accident.
Yeah, yeah. It's crazy and really, really sad. And so if it is an accident, like that's the thing too, is like that uncertainty because if it is an accident, we will never truly know because there will never be any tips that come out. There will never be anyone who gets arrested for this. There will be never any answer definitively. So, but you won't know for sure that that's because it was an accident. You'll think, oh, they just haven't found the person yet. So it's like only if it was foul play and they find the person will you know for sure what happened. If it's an
Yeah.
accident, we'll never know
That's, like,
for
one
sure.
thing I think, like, Lee brought up. I don't know if he actually said it or if it was, like, quoted in another, like, podcast, but it's like the dog is, like, the only one that really knows what happened because he was there and, like, would have seen it and would have saw somebody else there, and so there's no way, obviously, to get any information from the dog, even though the dog knows exactly what happened, so, yeah, it's yeah, it's sad.
If oh yeah, if only the dog could talk. If only
I
dogs could
know.
talk.
Yeah.
Crazy, crazy. So there is. So I mean, obviously, like the case is still considered open because it's undetermined death. Anyone with information about Amanda Antoni's death is asked to call the Calgary Police at 403-266-1234. Tips can also be submitted anonymously to Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-TIPS, which is 1-800-222-8477. And those are all anonymous tips as well. So that does it for this week's episode. Very interesting and perplexing case for sure. So we hope you enjoyed listening to our analysis of this case or our thoughts and our theories, and we want to hear from you what you think. So you can either send us an email, you can, send us a DM on social media, you can, leave us a comment on Spotify. You can leave comments there, what your thoughts are about this case, because it definitely is a crazy one. So you can follow us on Instagram at Crime Family Podcast. You can follow us on Facebook, Crime Family Podcast, and you can email us at crimefamilypodcast@gmail.com. And we are also on TikTok now, so you can follow us there at Crime Family Pod. So yeah, we'll be back next week with a brand new case and a brand new discussion. And until then, take care. Bye.
Bye.